This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hello, world, and welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. Today's sponsor is A2 Hosting. I've been using A2 Hosting solid-state hosting solutions for our website at geekleader.com for many, many years now, and absolutely love their support, their service, and all the features that you get. You get access to cPanel. You get all of the things that you can imagine for a great WordPress experience, including their A2 optimized WordPress, which does extra security checks, extra lockdown. You can lock down your editor file so you can't edit anything inside there. You get alerts whenever there are file changes that are done. You can also do automatic updates, backups, and more with A2 Hosting. So highly recommend it. Go to geekleader.com/A2 to get more information and to sign up for their solid-state, turbocharged speed hosting today. Again, that's at geekleader.com/A2. All right, Geek Leaders. Today I'm honored to have Rish Gupta on the show, and he is co-founder of Spot AI, which is a groundbreaking breaking video intelligence company. So we're going to talk a lot about video, AI. I work in the media industry as well, so it's kind of a cool, interesting topic for me. And we're going to talk about how Rish got to where he is today and what it is that he's doing and what's interesting. But anyway, with all that being said, Rish, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thanks so much for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, so I am honored to have you on and really excited to talk about this. But before we get started, let's tell the audience a little bit about how you got to where you are in your career and what is it exactly that you guys do over at Spot AI.
Yeah, I'll give a brief introduction of what we do so that the context of how we got here is more meaningful. What we do is very simply, I think everybody has seen security cameras at retail stores, at schools and any kind of establishment, airports, etc. They've gone to. There are hundreds of millions of security cameras deployed across the U.S. Unfortunately, those cameras do not have great software. What I mean by that is like your Nest or Ring camera at your home where you can track your pet, you can look at your baby, or you can look at the $10 Amazon package that you ordered. Most business in the U.S. cannot look at a $100,000 shipment arriving at the shipping bay. And so we basically provide the software layer for these cameras easily the latest AI to have the latest in video intelligence at their fingertips. So we are unlocking the video footage, the data from this video footage for businesses across the country. So that's in a nutshell is what we do.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was curious, when it comes to how do you guys interface with those cameras? Do you create your own cameras, or are they using existing hardware that's there that you're just making smart, or what is it?
Yeah, the beauty of it is we work with any camera in the market. So as long as it's an internet IP camera, we'll work with any brand. And all we do is we ship a small piece of hardware. Think of it as like a small box of, which has all the AI GPUs, which has the storage, everything built in, which gets shipped to a customer. The customer needs to connect it to their network where the cameras are. It auto discovers all the cameras, adds them to our box. Then a box, it doesn't matter the camera is smart or not, has any AI functionality or not. Our box can take raw video footage and do all the AI video processing, do all the storage, and then make that video accessible on your mobile phones, your laptop, your desktops, a smart TV, wherever you might want to screen that footage.
Cool. So I'm going to sound a little stupid here, but I remember, and I'm watching these again with my daughter. So just to clarify, yeah. I'm not. So CSI, all the CSI shows, the old ones. I've been watching those with my daughter because she watched a little bit of the new series. I'm like, you have to go back and watch the older ones to understand what's going on here. So we went back. We started watching all of them from the very beginning on like Paramount Plus or wherever it's at. And as we're going through there, they're taking like camera footage to like track this person, and it's going from following this person around, switching cameras and moving stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't really, I can't really do that in my work with our cameras and stuff like that. So is that something that you guys are actually building in there?
In terms of the zoom in functionalities of the
to be able to like pick a person and kind of like not just zoom in, but just take the person and kind of like follow them along and know that they're leaving this camera space and they're going to be going into this other one soon. And
so if you want to know how X person kind of move between different cameras,
yes,
doable. I think where it gets into science fiction spaces cameras have a certain amount of megapixel.
Right.
Not immediately zoom into a person's face who is 100 feet away.
Correct.
Camera, like literally no camera can do that. So the fact that it just goes from pixelated to complete clarity, and you're like, oh, now suddenly I can see
Yeah, they're like,
little mole on his nose, and I'm like, now I understand. It's like, no, that's not possible.
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
so yeah,
cool.
yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so how did you come up with the idea to kind of make cameras smarter?
So yeah, that kind of ties into the first question. How did we get here, or how did I get here? So my personal story is I grew up in Delhi in India, and growing up for a bunch of different reasons, had a very entrepreneurial kind of itch or drive, and always wanted to kind of go and do my own thing. Started a couple of businesses in college. Some of them failed, some of them made some money, but I felt I was very raw, so decided to go work for a very early stage tech company run by a professional who had come back from Silicon Valley to India, and I tried to join him to learn from him. And I worked there for a year, and kind of got frustrated with how they were doing things. It didn't kind of align with my view of the world, and I said, "Screw this! I can go and build something of my own." So at a very young age, I started my first tech company, and I got really lucky with the first tech company in the sense that when I started in 2010. Even though it doesn't look that far ago, or 2010 from an US internet standpoint, internet was everywhere. Everybody was using emails. And in India, it wasn't the same because India predominantly is a much poorer country. So most people could not afford $1,000 PC and $100 broadband connection. So only about 30 million people or 1.3 billion people were on the internet. So internet looked like, oh, it's a Western phenomena, a rich country phenomena. It's probably not going to penetrate India in the same way because PC cost had not really reduced below $1,000 for a long time. So, but I still wanted to start in the internet. I understood it. Being young and being more technology centric like that felt natural. And in 2012, luckily for us, everything changed because cheap Android phones flooded the market. So suddenly the cost of a device to get on the internet went from $1,000 to $100. Instead of a $100 broadband connection, you needed a $10 cellular connection to get on the internet. And the number of internet users in India went from like 30 million to 300 million in about 2 years. And 300 million is just like the entire population of the US, imagine getting online within 2 years. And so because we'd built a business right before that, it's kind of rising tides lift all boats. We had like 10 to 10x growth for 2 years on a user base, and we ended up with millions of users on a platform. And then I sold that business, was very enamored by technology, and decided to move to San Francisco to build my next company. I was like, if I want to build another tech company, I want to do it from Silicon Valley. But every time I reflected back on my experience, one thing was very clear, that I got incredibly lucky by being in this rising tide situation. Like I made a ton of mistakes. I was really young. I probably made every mistake in the book that you could make running a business, but rising tide just made sure that we still landed okay. So I was basically looking for what the rising tide could be. So this was about 2016 to 18 when I was at grad school at Stanford. And in 2016 to 18 was a time when mobile apps were really popular. Instagram had just become really popular a few years ago. Snapchat had become popular a few years after that. And so everybody on campus wanted to build the next cool app. That didn't appeal to me because I felt like there's no rising wave behind it, because by that time, there were already 5 billion smartphones. Everybody had already the 50 apps they used. People only downloaded 1 or 2 new apps a year, which they became addicted to. So it's like, okay, there's about 1 million plus apps being launched, and 2 apps are going to win the race that year. And I'm like, that's worse odds than any casino. That's the worst life odds. Like, I'm not going to build another app. And I was looking for the next wave. And one thing, what was happening at that point was Google Nest, Alexa from Amazon, and Apple CarPlay, and all these things around us were getting connected to the internet. Like, the light bulbs through Bluetooth, and like different things, technology. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a chip in everything around us. And unlike people, which there are only 7 billion people, so you can only sell 7 billion phones, everybody owns hundreds of things. Factories own hundreds of things. So like chips are kind of like, putting chips in things and like sensors is kind of where the next wave is going to be, because there's going to be hundreds and billions of these internet connected devices. So that kind of got moving in this direction. And then the more we dug in, the more video seemed like the right place to attack, because video was also heating the world. Everybody was consuming large amounts of video traffic on the consumer side. 85% of all internet traffic is video. And so, and then some of the technology waves underneath it, we were like, oh, the GPUs to process these videos are getting 2x better every year. So every year you can do twice as much for the same cost point. And this was being sustained every year for like 5 or 6 years. And we're like, oh, this is what Moore's law at the beginning of PC revolution back in the 70s was doing with Intel chips. And so it's like, okay, this is happening now at the GPU level. So AI and video processing is accelerating at a phenomenal speed. And there's already so many cameras deployed. So this felt like that wave, which is continuing to grow. And there are multiple kind of factors supporting this wave. Like iPhones are getting more and more popular, and now iPhones have 3 cameras, and soon they will have 4 cameras in the back, which means suddenly the world used to produce a few 100 million cameras, but today the world produces billions of camera sensors because everybody wants 4 cameras on their phone. So now the camera prices have become really cheap. So the cost of sensor has become phenomenally cheap. So every business can afford it, even outside from an iPhone, like the same camera sensor which goes in cameras. And the cheap chips to process this video, to do AI stuff on this video, is getting better and better every year. So it's getting twice as fast, twice as much processing for the same cost every year. So which means over 5 years, it's getting 30 times as fast. And then you layer on top all the kind of software like progress that's happening on the AI layer. So, we felt the AI layer is going through a transformation where 10 years ago, to build AI, you needed 100 research scientists at Google with a smart computer to determine if an image is a cat or not a cat. Today, you can write 2 lines of code on your computer and have a cat classifier running, an AI model running in no time with not knowing much code. And this is the same transformation which happened to the internet. Like building a website in 2000, you needed on the Linux servers, you needed to know a bunch of things. Today, anybody can build up a website without knowing any code at all, right? And AI is kind of progressing that direction. So finally, the software AI side was getting into the application layer. The chips were getting better. The sensors were getting cheaper. So this felt like the perfect wave to kind of be a part of.
Yeah, no, that sounds super cool. And you're right. I didn't really think about it on the AI side, but yeah, I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I started a company building, websites and hosting websites for people. And, back then you needed to know, like you said, LAMP stack. You had to build a Linux server. You had to know HTML, and that was pre-CSS days. So you had to know like styling in HTML and things like that. And then CSS came out and you had to learn that. And now you just go to Squarespace or something and drag and drop, and boom, your website's done in about 15 minutes and you're done.
Yeah. There's a bunch of no-code solutions, and and the AI is slowly progressing in that direction where you can go to a bunch of open source models and you can download those models onto your MacBook, and like you can literally run a couple of Python lines and have it running.
Yeah, that's just crazy how it's getting there. So, what are some things that you guys are doing with AI in the combination of video from that perspective and putting the two together?
So the first thing we're doing is, which sounds simple, but because the video data is so rich, because it's the reason it takes 85% of internet traffic is because it is the richest data form. Like every minute of video is way more, like it's just heavily compared to audio files or compared to any other kind of file structure out there. So we realized that you cannot take this video, because a business, an airport, for example, has about anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 cameras. So you cannot take 3,000 cameras to the cloud, because no internet connection bandwidth is going to support 3,000 cameras streaming 24/7 in HD. It's like somebody trying in your home to stream 10 Netflixes at the same go. Or you trying to, stream 100 Netflixes, and the problem scales. So like it's just that internet bandwidth wise not possible. So what we had to do was build this box which allows for edge computing, which basically means we can do all the fundamental cool stuff that companies do in the cloud. How do we bring it down to the edge so that the video does not have to leave the network of our customers and can start getting processed? And that's kind of the first step. And that unlocks even simple things like knowing if there's motion in the frame or not. Is there a person in the frame or not? How many people are there in the frame? Which parts of if you're a retail store or a manufacturing facility, which parts of your facility are people using the most through heat maps? If you have any kind of drive-in traffic, whether you're a drive-through restaurant or you're a car wash or you're a retail parking lot, how many cars are there? What are the license plates of those cars? What route are they taking? How much time do they wait in the line? What is it average across different locations? So we start getting now all these kinds of data, and it's not, and are able to piece together this data for customers in what we call business intelligence dashboards for them to consume and compare stores or compare different facilities and make business decisions. So that's what we unlock. But the key to it is bringing the cloud down to the edge so that the video does not have to leave the network.
No, I think that's really good and really cool to hear you say that, because I know working in on an industry where we make movies and TV series, people are always like, why don't you just send all your video to the cloud and do your editing there? I'm like, I can't do 4K video editing and rendering in the cloud. Like, you got to have that local and on-prem.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Very, yeah. It's so basically what you guys are doing is you put a box on-prem so that you don't have to send that video anywhere. And
exactly.
Inside that box, you have your software and your GPUs that are actually processing the video content and pulling data out of that video content that then you can run analytics on and pull information to make business decisions and put those into a nice BI dashboard that can be used by business leaders to make decisions.
Exactly. You should be pitching my business, John.
Every now and then I get it right.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly what we do. And while we did that, we also realized that because it is actually difficult to take the video from local networks for the exact reason that's heavy files to even stream on a mobile phone and on desktops. So a lot of our customers are just even happy, apart from the BI dashboard, the fact that they can, for the first time, see their manufacturing facility in a different state, a different city, sitting in their house, sitting in a different location. Because for them, these videos were siloed. You had, I don't know if you remember this movie called Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
But if you imagine that most companies have that setup, which is they have one security back room with a bunch of monitors plugged into old school digital video recorders, and you can only watch these cameras from that one security room. And so if you want to know what happened or what is happening, you have to walk to that room, and normally it's in the most unglamorous part of the building. It's a room which is not kept properly. And you go in and there's a mouse and a keyboard, and you're trying to use this very old school interface to go back and forth on these videos. Versus the experience we have at our homes, which is like, oh, I want to know what's happening in front of my front door. I pull up a phone and you can just quickly scroll through the video, right? When you have a couple of cameras, it's easy to do. But when you have hundreds of cameras, that is really hard to do. And the fact that we enable that for businesses is also just a huge, huge factor for them to just just the fact that they can have eyes onto the business.
Yeah, I think it's also really cool how you're taking, just not just the visual part of that and making it easy to use like you would your Ring camera or something at the house, but also that you're getting data out of that. So you kind of can tell, just off of video feeds, how busy your parking lot is maybe after hours when you're closed, because maybe you don't know that you need to put some security guards, driving by there every now and then, or you need to do something, having that ability to pull that data, when people aren't necessarily paying attention.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of cool stuff. We had one of our customers who ran this, who had multiple car washes across the country, and they'd installed us in their car washes, and they were scaling fast. They were opening new locations every month. And what they realized was, using our heat maps, they realized that they never have the capacity. The last 4 vacuum stations are never getting utilized because they never had capacity. So they're actually always building 4 vacuum stations than they need to for their locations. And that cost them about $50,000. And they're like, oh, now for every new location, we're going to build fewer vacuum stations because that customers need. We're just building excess capacity, which nobody taps into. And it was like a $50,000 per saving for them straight up, right? Like in the first week of system.
Yeah, wow. And see, so by using video data, they already had, really they had the information. They just didn't have it in a way that was, consumable.
Yeah.
So you were able to take that and actually figure it out, and to do that without having that video information means that somebody would have to sit there and literally check a checkbox every time a car comes to each spot, and it would be ridiculously long. So being able to take that saved them a ton of time, a ton of money, and you were able to save money going forward for all their new locations by removing those extra vacuum bins.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's an interesting use case that I never would have thought about using cameras for.
And that's been the funnest part of the journey, is that people educate about use cases, which we're like, oh, that sounds obvious, but I would have never thought of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I'm getting educated on these different use cases. But the underlying thing is, we consume the world through our eyes the most. Like, 90% of all our perception of the world is through our eyes. And if you think about anybody running physical operations, especially if they're remote, they have multiple factories, multiple facilities, they don't have eyes on 90% of those facilities, or 95%. They might visit a location on a day or be at a location. And so the moment you open their eyes to the other locations, the amount of things they start seeing, because they understand the business, they understand the movement of goods, people, vehicles in the business, they can start seeing patterns, and then they tell us interesting things. And we're like, oh yeah, we can actually get AI to do this and get you more data on this. Oh, we didn't know this could be interesting for you. Like, you want to understand queue lengths, or you want to understand how long did this car idle before it moved, or you want to understand how people are using forklifts in your manufacturing facilities. Like, great, like this is what you're looking for. Now we can go automate some of this for you.
So is most of the work that you guys are doing, is it custom, like for that environment? No? Okay.
No. So we understand use cases, and then once we feel a use case is, most use cases are generic enough. So if we know if a few manufacturers want to understand how forklifts move, mm-hmm. then probably every manufacturing facility which has forklifts is interested in that data. So we'll go and build that feature. But it wouldn't be a feature built for company X, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, so that does make sense. So basically you're taking the data, and if you find something that's very valuable for a large population of your customers, then you implement that and kind of put that in there. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
Cool. So, when you started this business, what was it like, getting that first, investor or person in there where you realized this is really going to take off? Like, what did that feel like?
The first product that, we created a couple of things, but the first product which made revenue for us, we had this really janky plastic casing we had bought off eBay, and we had put some Raspberry Pis in it, and we'd put some storage drives in it, and small fans to keep the Raspberry Pis cool. And we would go in it. It looked like a science project from high school or like college. And we would go to a company and be like, hey, if you connect this to your internet network where your cameras are, we can talk to the cameras and give you this easy to use dashboard. And all the dashboard initially did was literally just give them access to view their cameras on their phones and their desktops and laptops and such. And we thought maybe people not buy it or people not be interested. The first few people we spoke to, they're like, this sounds cool enough an idea. Come try it at one of our locations. We gave those business owners access to one of their locations, and we said for 30 days, and we'll come back, and then if you like it, we'll discuss cost. And so we thought so we got 3 business owners to say yes to us, and we thought maybe one of them will be willing to pay for one location, and that would be a huge win for us. But all 3 of them said within a week, when we went back to them, because we deployed around the same time, within a week or 2, they all said yes. And they were all businesses which had multiple locations. And they didn't just say yes for this. They're like, oh, we love this. We want this at all our locations. What does that cost? And we were just blown away that something which looked so homemade, which was built in my co-founder's garage, in his dad's garage. Like, we literally didn't have space. His dad had a bigger house, and we had a garage. As we would go there, and he would do all of the manual assembly, and we just built, and people were willing to buy, and we willing to pay up tens of thousands of dollars to us for this product. And that is when we felt like, okay, what we're doing matters. there are customers who will pay for it, who want this. And that kind of led to kind of the genesis or going from the few co-founders in a garage to like actual starting to build a company around it.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. So, how'd you come up with your pricing, your support model, and how'd you hire people and grow your team to where you guys are today? Like, what was that process like?
Pricing was hard for us because the traditional in the video security market, traditionally in the business enterprise space, all they've bought is just the cameras, never the software. So they just paying for the camera. So it's if you even and this shows up in the consumer space as well. If you buy an Amazon Ring camera or something, it's primarily just paying for the camera, and there's a free tier of service that everybody gets a few days of recording for free, and then there's kind of priced software tiers. But in business, people were not used to paying for the software. So how do we kind of get them used to it was kind of a bigger challenge. And we tried a bunch of different pricing models to make sense of it. And we finally landed on a model which is working and scaling, which is saying, really putting a stake in the ground and saying, the hardware doesn't matter. So we're just going to give you a license cost. And our hardware, you can take it for free. And you pay for the software. And if you like the software, that's what the value add is. And we're able to sell people on the value of the software. And then people pay us a software license for it. But it took us probably 5 or 6 different pricing iterations to get here. And we would try some things with the customers, and some things would stick, some things wouldn't. And finally, we found something which the customers could easily understand, could see value in, we could easily pitch, made sense for our business model, and is finally scaling with it. So pricing, I think you had another question tiered in that there, kind of.
Yeah. So that gets you to the pricing and kind of building the business. Now, how'd you get to like hiring and building your team? That's it feels like, when you're co-founder and you guys are kind of the only ones out there, you're building this stuff in a garage and putting it together, to bring on people, it's always a tough challenge to get the right people and grow the team that way and delegate properly.
Yeah, I think, and you probably hear this from a lot of startup founders or anybody who's built a business, is that the first few 10 customers, the first few 10 people that you hire are very much a personal like hustle or personal approach. So you're going to every customer and kind of pitching yourself personally about the product, you're pitching your own story, and you're getting them to buy into your vision and buy the product. Same thing, we went to friends and friends of friends we knew who we thought were smart, and basically pitched them story of like, this is what we're doing, this is why we're so excited. There were some of them were colleagues we'd worked in past lives with. So one of the engineers from a previous startup, we got him on board. One of the company that worked briefly at, like, we got some engineers from there. But some of these people took about 6 months to 1 year to convince. Like, I would get coffee with them every month, tell them I'm doing this, and I really want them to be a part of the team. And they'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but probably too risky, or I'm not yet convinced that this is going to be a viable business. And then I think just keep going at them. So the first 10, 20 people were definitely people either we knew from our university programs, we knew from our previous work experiences, or friends of friends who had really good references from some friends, like, oh, you're looking for X person, this person in my network is amazing at this. And then really going and selling and being prepared that with the best candidates, it's going to take sometimes months to convince them on your business idea early on, and then being patient with that and not letting the nose get to your heart or head.
Yeah. So once you've got those first few hires, you got people on that you wanted to build, and you started to scale the business and grow up, what kind of leadership style did you have with those employees?
Yeah, and this is definitely an evolution. Like, I think when I probably first managed a team in my early 20s, I thought of it as just task management. And like, I have a set of tasks to get done. Now, instead of me, I have 4 more people to do it. So divide the task. And if I can just track these tasks and how much people are doing per day, and if I can just push them to do more and more per day, I'm a better leader. And my leadership, quality is only measured by the number of tasks done per day or done per week by this team. And that I realized over the period of time that is probably one of the worst ways to manage people. And today what we really focus on is one fundamental principle that people who are joining us or any company are not joining because we are doing them a favor. They have a career plan for themselves. And our company and our company's story and our company's position, our company's trajectory fits into their personal career story today. Like they might be on a journey where they want to go join a small company and take bigger responsibilities. And that's what we are providing them. So we are a small piece in their story rather than they are a small piece in ours. And understanding that helps you frame all the company things that you want them to focus on as challenges that fit their narrative for their own life. So we spend a lot of time making sure that people feel challenged in the way that fits their narrative, and it ties down back to the business. That's kind of the first pillar, is to understand people have a journey and we fit into theirs and not the other way around. The second is, as a startup, you want to innovate fast, you want to go fast, you want to do a lot of things. And if you limit that capacity to only the 3 founders' brain or only the startup CEO's brain, you end up rate limiting yourself to how much you can think, do. So you want everyone to start thinking, and people really, they have both the permission to fail and the permission to succeed. So you want to give them full onus of success, but also not point fingers at them when they fail. So one of the measures I constantly try to do with my team is like, do you feel comfortable enough to fail? Like if you made a bad decisions, if you failed in something, do you feel that that's okay? Like you can accept that to your colleagues, you can accept that to your manager, and failure is an okay outcome of experiments that you're running, because we're all basically running a bunch of experiments at a startup to scale. So it's a lot built around challenge, autonomy, and then giving them really rich context of the customer and the market that we're playing in, so that they have the information to use the first 2 pillars of challenge and autonomy in the company's best interest, or the company's, like, they're all rowing in the same direction.
No, I think that's great. I think it's, I was actually having this conversation with someone just the other day. We're talking about like policies and procedures, and, and they were talking about how that, it's really important for them to have documented procedures for everything and all these SOPs and all this, detailed work. I said, I get that for like manufacturing sometimes, but don't you want to, maybe set up like guide rails and then let people be creative in their own problem solving and their own solutions to come up with, ideas that you would have never even thought of that, are out there, maybe even better, and provide not just, a better outcome for the business, but also more fulfillment for that person and a better work environment. And, I like the way that you're talking about, giving people that opportunity and that freedom.
Yeah.
So what is next for Spot AI and kind of your growth that you have there with the people that are part of your team?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I was just saying, what's next for Spot AI and kind of the growth that you've had with your team, and what's next for you guys?
It's a continuous journey of what we believe is, as I told you, like these, because the camera sensors becoming really cheap, we believe they're going to completely proliferate every part of physical operations and business in the country. They'll be very cheap to deploy and easy to deploy. And the computing power, the GPUs, the AI application layer is going to continue on a very strong growth trajectory over the next 7 years. So it's this new category forming where video is going to go from seeing as this, there's a security camera to stop the bad person or the bad thing to happen, to, here's a video source which is a part of my business intelligence stack. When I think about my CRMs, when I think about my digital data, I think about my video data as a way to understand my business. And this transformation is happening in the CIO landscape, in the, how companies are thinking about the technology. And for us, it is just 2 questions. How do we accelerate this transformation for the industry? And how do we dominate this transformation for the industry? So when this transformation happens, we're seen as a dominant player. So that's anything that enables that, hiring more people, telling our stories on podcasts like this, anything that enables that is kind of falls under the paradigm of what's next or where we focus on.
I think that's awesome. So it's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I like learning more about what you guys are doing. How can people connect with you online and and maybe take a demo of what Spot AI can bring for them.
Yeah. Fortunately, Spot AI provides a free demo. So if you just log into www.spot.ai or spotai.co, either website or spot.ai, you'll be able to see our website. You will see a link for a live demo, as well as to book a demo. So you can join any of, you can get in touch with us through any of those mediums.
Awesome. And I'll link that up in the show notes too at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through. Yeah. Rish, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
John, thanks so much for having me.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also don't forget to check out merch. We have some t-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.